And I'm going to hand over the microphone and you can take it from there.
Yep. I'm Garrett with Lubbock Overnight. That's my company's name. And my background is I was a commercial banker for 5 years out of school. Did that for a little bit, did not like it. Learned a lot though. It was great for real estate investing. Got into renting a bedroom out of my house on Airbnb. That turned into managing 80 plus rentals in the short-term rental game here in Lubbock. They're all here. I've done them in Angel Fire, Grapevine. I've got 10 or 11 properties of my own, some commercial. Most are long-term holds, a couple of them are Airbnbs. So that's what I do. I just want to put a quick disclaimer on here that this is all my opinion on everything, so don't take it as fact, but I would say that I've had the experience and the volume to make a pretty good assumption for a lot of the market out here and in the short-term rental side of it. So with that, I guess we'll go ahead and get started. I want to start out with the first is the current number of listings in the market. I pulled this data from my pricing software, and we have 474 listings as of yesterday. That's just the Lubbock market. It has grown substantially in the at least in late two. If you see down here, it might be a little too small to see. It says of the spread of houses, but townhomes, duplexes, things like that. So that should give you kind of an idea of what's going on with the market. The occupancy, it shows on here as around 50%. It says 48% year on average. I think that's heavily dependent on how often these houses are listed. You've got some people that list their houses just for game days, big weekends. You also have people that only list part of the year while their kids are out of school and back home for the summer. So I look and see about a 65% average occupancy on most of the properties I deal with. Now, some of them will be a lot higher, some in the 85, 95% range. It's all dependent on your property, the quality of it, the pricing, and actually less dependent on the location, in my opinion. So going forward, I want to start with some questions to ask, especially for the new people and anybody looking into short-term rentals in general. First of that is, what is your income expectation? That's a big question I like to ask people because they have this idea that you're going to get rich quick off of short-term rentals. And I don't think that's the case at all. I call it medium speed money. You have your slow money, which is your long-term rentals, your flips and your new construction, which is your quick money, and you have your medium money here. And that 2 years ago, yes, that was more the case. Now I would say the margins could be a lot more slim. You've got taxes, all that kind of stuff that you're dealing with, and you have really heavy competition. And Wendell and I were talking about this before. You've got a lot of competition with houses that aren't true investment properties. So in the past, it was people using their house, their investment house, those nice, furnishing it and putting it on Airbnb. Now you've got $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 houses that you would never hold as an investment, but they're putting them on Airbnb because it allows them to maintain the equity in it, but they can make some money off of it, cover their taxes, maybe their mortgage, but a lot of times they aren't cash flowing. And I've learned that too because I've talked to a lot of people that do that. They tell me they're very busy. I go look at their listing, their calendar, they're booked on the weekends, and I see their price and said, you are clearly not doing your financials each month, because if you were, you'd see that your net cash flow is either marginal or negative. So I think that's an important thing to look at. Secondly, the cash on hand you need to furnish these. Typically, banks are not going to give you the cash to furnish these rentals unless you're going to do some sort of refinance or build it into your budget on your flip or whatever you might be doing. In general, I would say that a 3-2, if you self-furnish and use the right stuff, is going to cost you at least 10 grand. You can do it for less. I've seen people do it for less. I've done it for less in the past, but you get what you pay for. The furnishings you're going to have in there, if you do cheap, is going to look cheap. It's going to be disjointed. It's not going to look congruent, and people are going to notice that. And in this market, it'll make sure your house doesn't do well very quickly. Secondly, is the time to furnish that. You have that time, because if you're flipping, you probably do. But if you're working a secondary job or your primary job and you're trying to do the secondary, one of the things I hear all the time is, oh, I'll get that done in the next 2 weekends. Okay, good luck. Call me in 6 weeks when you get it finished, because that's how long it'll take if you're working on it a lot. Also, knowing what to buy. It's like having a blank canvas and having to get every single thing, all the way from the mattress down to the can opener. You've got to have it all. Next one, late night phone calls and texts from guests. These people have no sense of time and no sense of your personal time, that's for sure. You'll get calls at 12:30, 2:30 in the morning. You'll get calls at 4 in the morning. We got one 2 days ago at 4 in the morning, and it happens constantly. And it might be friendly people, it might be people that work nights, or it might be really angry people, which most often it is. So that's another thing you have to think of if you're gonna self-manage your properties, because your expectation is that you answer those phone calls or you get back to them pretty quickly. It's not like long-term management when you have a couple days where you can possibly fix something. If it's not fixed on a one-day rental, by the time they call in 2 hours later, they're upset, and that review from a 5-star is going to a 3 or a 1-star. So that's a big deal. Another one is your property suitable for a short-term rental. That's another big one I see. I see a lot of people that have a house that hasn't rented for the big student rush, or that hasn't rented for one reason or another, call me, hey, I want to turn this to a short-term rental, what'll it take? So it's gonna take about 10 grand to furnish and another $20,000 to rehab it the way it needs to be to do well in this market. So don't take your junk houses and turn them into Airbnbs. And they might function well as short terms, but you've got to be really, really careful in making sure that it's the right decision, especially for your first one, because you want to have good experience, not a bad experience throughout the whole thing. Then you need to make sure you have a plan for cleaning, maintenance, financial reporting, and taxes. Those are your big things that you have to take care of. Cleaning by far is the most difficult portion of it to manage, especially if you're trying to manage other cleaners. The people that clean houses generally, you're constantly having to monitor them, you're constantly having to inspect them, you're constantly having to check on everything they're doing. Just even showing up is a big deal. We can't get them to show up half the time. If you got a back-to-back booking, you got a 5-hour window, you better make sure that thing's clean. Otherwise, you're refunding the entire cleaning fee or refunding the whole stay. So, and then how will you handle problems associated with the STR? That's another big one. Do you have the knowledge from the online or from talking to people on how to handle bad guests, maintenance stuff? Do you have a contractor list you can call that can fix all this stuff for you quickly and at the right price? So I like to make sure people have a really clear view of the expectations and not a jaded view. I'm not that guy on Facebook that's trying to sell you a course, and tell you, oh, you're gonna make tons of money, you can manage this from a beach. I'm like, I don't know who you guys are, but you almost have the best houses in the world, because that is very difficult to do. Locations, our next one. I have preferred locations and I have locations I'd like to avoid. And the ones that I like to avoid are probably the ones that most people think of when they go to it. We were kind of talking heart of Lubbock, Tech Terrace, East Lubbock, rough neighborhoods. Those are the ones I definitely say to avoid, especially Tech Terrace, mainly because the pricing of the houses is too expensive. Unless you've owned the house for 5 or 10 years or more, I think you're gonna have a hard time finding a deal over there that's been rehabbed correctly at the right price point. Yeah, you can find a flip, but likely you've got plumbing, HVAC, and electrical issues that you're gonna have to fix, and it's gonna cut into your cash flow and your revenue stream, and it's gonna make guests pretty upset. My preferred locations right now, south, southwest, and northwest. New construction or newer construction if possible. I'm not gonna use the home building company's name that they don't like realtors, but we all know them, starts with a B. Those houses tend to do very well. But they're also one of the few new constructions that are affordable. Central.
Rentals as well.
They are great as rentals. They're great as rentals.
Didn't they stop selling to investors?
No, I just go in there and tell them that I'm buying a new house for myself to live in.
I'm in a new one every week.
Yep.
Someone just bought, and my sign's in the yard.
Yep. Constantly. Yep. It happens a lot.
Super great to work with.
They are really good at working with.
Work great as rentals, and apparently
My best ones are those houses in the Bell Farm neighborhood, Upland Crossing. They do really well. Another area I like a lot, Central. When I say Central, I'm thinking anywhere from University to Slide, from about 34th to the Loop, sometimes a little bit past the Loop too. All that stuff works really well. I like Majin, we like Monterey neighborhoods. Stay out of the medical district because of the flood zones. They have a lot of flood zones over there, and they're similar to Tech Terrace in pricing now. You can't really find any really good deals, so Central. And then if you can find a close proximity to campus that you own already, or that is, just a screaming deal. It's like that once in a 5-year deal that comes along, you grab it, if it makes sense money-wise, but don't be buying stuff that's not a good investment. One of the biggest things I try to tell people to look for is look for this as an investment first, a true long-term investment, before you turn it into a short-term rental. If something happens with the market, they shut it down, we have another pandemic, anything like that, It's a lot easier to rent a house that works than it is to rent a house that you're going to be underwater $400 or $500 a month on every single month. So, and when COVID hit, that was a great example. We had several of our owners that shouldn't have been in the rental game, in the short-term rental game especially. I mean, 2 months into that, they were done, turned it back over. Lease arbitrage is another one, where you're leasing a house, try to Airbnb it. Maybe in Miami or in big markets where you're getting $500 to $1,000 a night, great, but in this market, you're gonna have a hard time with lease arbitrage. Age of house is another big one. Like I said, I'm a big fan of new construction or less than 20 years old if possible. Try to avoid houses that have cast iron plumbing, plumbing issues in general, of course, aluminum wiring. Biggest issues I see though are plumbing and sewer lines. Constant clogs and just dealing with those. I like to say stay away from 50-year-old or more houses unless they've been completely redone. The nice thing with those though is a lot of them are pier and beam, so you can get underneath there and redo the plumbing a lot easier. But if you have to redo wiring, you're ripping out the whole walls. So keep that in mind when you're purchasing these houses and the cost of rehab. It's great if you're just doing a flip to buy and sell. You don't care what happens, but if you're gonna hold it in your portfolio, you wanna make sure that stuff's fixed up correctly. And then layout and size of homes. This is a big one. We were talking about this earlier, me and Wendell. A lot of people I see buying these expensive houses or holding these expensive houses they're holding pretty big houses, 2,500 square feet or greater. And those just get too expensive to clean, especially if you're using an aftermarket service company. And I'll send this PowerPoint to all you guys too. Y'all can have it.
It's being recorded too.
Yeah.
I have it on YouTube and the Facebook group.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I'm happy to send this to you guys. Stay away from the super big houses unless you have a way to manage the cleaning, or you know that you can get the nightly price and the cleaning fee and the taxes associated with it to cover all that. My favorite houses are gonna be 2-bedroom, 2 baths, 1,500 square feet or less. They work well for families. They work well for small couples because your cleaning fee is lower. They've got the 2 baths, so you have individuals in there. We have a lot of contractors that stay in Lubbock. And when I say contractors, I don't mean the guys that don't take care of stuff. We have a lot of professional wind guys, solar guys, flooring for commercial projects is a big one. The roofers have been great that I've worked with. Those are a lot of people that stay. And they either want one of two things. They want to cram as many as they can fit in a house, or they want 2, maybe 3 guys in that house. So that's why I like the 2-bedroom, 2 bath, 3-bedroom, 2 bath. Those are great too. If you can, look for one that has a master that can fit 2 queen beds versus 1 master. And if you have 2 bedrooms, the other 2 bedrooms, you can put kings in there to offer that benefit. But you don't have to think of it as in your traditional sense that only the parents are going to stay in the master bedroom. They're going to stay in the nicest bedroom with the best bed. But if you can get an extra set of people, your guest count goes from 6 or 7 with a couch to 8 or 9 with a couch. And so you get extra people, extra guest fees after a certain number if you want to do that. So it helps make you some more money. 4-bedroom, 2 and 3 baths, you can do them. They do tend to work great. They better be very nice, or they better be really cheap. One or the other. If you're right in the middle, that extra bedroom's not going to bring you a lot of extra nightly rate. It's not going to do much from a guest count. And then finally, the 1-bedroom, 1 bath, these do awesome if you have reasonable expectations. $60 a night, $65 a night, somebody on the road coming in, you can keep those full all month, all the time. They work really well. The sizes to avoid: 3s, 3 1s, 4 1s, stay away from those. That 1 bathroom just really messes everything up. It's usually in the older houses. When you have a single bathroom, you got people upset. And if you have plumbing issues, if you got a clog on one side and it's not affecting the other bathroom, in a 2-bath house, then you're gonna have that problem exacerbated when you just have a single bathroom house. Like I said, large houses, stay away from those unless you've got really good cleaners and you can manage that. Homes with difficult to manage features. Pools are great. They make a lot of money. They're my most highest revenue performing houses. For sure, cleaning pool companies, we are short on them here in Lubbock. So if you want to make some money, open a cleaning pool company. That's a good business to be in. But they are very difficult to manage. They have to be cleaned at least once a week. You better have them cleaned on Thursday or Friday so that your weekend guests get the best pool possible. We had one cleaned on a Tuesday of last week. Yesterday, a guest got there, it was already green and gross, had to refund the guest. And you don't want to be cleaning all the time. Same thing with hot tubs, especially hot tubs. People are going to party in those. Had one in Angel Fire, and guests would party in that all the time. You test the pH after they left, and it'd be completely wrecked. People peeing in the pool or in the hot tub, yeah. And so you're having to not only clean it, but you're having to drain the whole thing. It's a real mess. So those are the difficult managed features. Another one is multi-story homes. I like multi-story homes, but you eliminate a good portion of your guests. There's a large number of older people that are starting to use this, especially in the 70 plus range. We have a lot of people that come through on VRBO especially, but you eliminate them if you have a 2-story house, especially if all the bedrooms are upstairs. So that's another big one. Furnishing and setup. This is a lot of my tips and tricks, but what I define as a well-furnished home, one is comfortable, clean, well-lit, and completely furnished with all the common amenities. So if you're looking to see what those are, go on Airbnb, set yourself up a fake listing, and click through all the amenities. If you have all those, you'll be doing pretty good. If you're missing a lot of them, that's not gonna help at all. And so I'm gonna kind of read these off and give some commentary on my preferred tips and things to avoid. I like to purchase new for everything if possible. I might buy a dining room table off of Facebook. I rarely buy anything else used. You can get away with it if you want to, but most of the time I'm seeing that stuff breaks quickly, especially beds. Used beds off of Facebook. The hinges are all messed up. There's nothing worse than a Saturday, you're out with your family and friends, it's 8 o'clock, you're at a restaurant, a bar, bed's broken, oh, your weekend's ruined. Go find a bed on a Saturday night. That's what happens. So buy the right stuff. I like metal, stuff that screws together like a Loctite and it doesn't break easily. Amazon's great for that. Another thing, look for congruency and decorations in your house. Don't take your old junk from your storage unit and go decorate a house. It looks terrible. Guests can see it. Everybody can see it. Go buy new stuff. Go to at home. Go to places that are inexpensive. Especially if you know you're going to be doing this soon, start buying now. Get all that red tag stuff that's cheap, and you can start getting it set up a lot cheaper. Automation, smart items. Wi-Fi locks are the big one. I use the QuickSet Halo for almost all of mine. You can use stuff that's software-based too if you like. I started using the QuickSet Halo before I started considering moving to a software-based lock, but whatever you find, just make sure it's got Wi-Fi built in. That way you can go and unlock the house. And on that same tip, make sure you have multiple ways to get into the house. I think that's at the bottom. Multiple ways of entry. So Airbnb guests, I've had some really great people, but I've had some of the dumbest people I've ever talked to in my entire life. And I mean, entering a 4-digit code can be like rocket science for them. And I'm not kidding. And it's usually at 12:30 at night and they're yelling at you. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you. But that's why you have Wi-Fi, unlock it on your phone. And then you also have a key box on the outside of the house. Hopefully they can open a key box. If they can't do that, well, I'm sorry. You probably just need to leave and go to a hotel. Another thing, smart TVs, built-in Rokus and Android devices. Do not do Rokus that plug into the side of the TV. Do not do Apple TVs. Anything that has an HDMI device, anything that can walk off in somebody's bag, don't do it. It's getting stolen. Not to mention the remotes. The remotes for a built-in Roku TV are $7 to $8 on Amazon. The same remote for that plug-in one is $30. Regular Roku costs $35 at Best Buy. So you're paying $30 for a new remote every time they're lost, and they get lost often. I don't have a preference between Roku or Android. I do use the TCL and Hisense TVs. They're inexpensive, they work well, and their warranties are good. I've had 2 replaced on warranty, and they've been just fine. So thermostats, Wi-Fi thermostats, use ones you can lock if possible, or at least lock from them going super low. I can't tell how many times I've had condensers frozen out because they turn it down to 60 and then they freeze the condenser out in 100-degree summer. So use those. Always have a working laundry. That is a big one. If you don't have a working laundry, you're just asking for difficulty with your cleaning. If you have a unit that doesn't have one, either figure out how to put one in or find something else to do with that because it is hard to do otherwise. My most stolen item in a house is hair dryers. So use the wall-mounted ones that they sell or they have at hotels. Those work great, $30 and they screw into the wall. Multiple sets of linens and comforters. Can't tell me how many times I've walked into somebody's house that they've set it up, tell me it's ready to go. I ask where the extra linens are. They said, well, y'all can just wash them each time. I said, have you not done laundry in your life? You're doing 3 or 4 loads of laundry in a clean. I can't wait the entire time to redo the bed. So make sure you have at least 2 sets of sheets per bed, plus an extra set for whatever size bed you have in there. Same thing with comforters, at least an extra set. I like to do 3 if possible. Mattress protectors, always have those on. Make sure you do those all the time. Security camera on the outside of the house only. Put one on the front of your house. It will save your life not your life, but it'll save your property. It'll definitely help out when you have that party guest come in that you didn't catch, you didn't look and see ahead of time that they might be an issue. But when you see 15 people going to your house, or 150 people in my case, then you'll learn that is going to save you. Now make sure you disclose that on your listing. That is the most important thing with a security camera. If you do not disclose, that's a real quick way to get your listing shut down immediately. Match the color temperature of your lights throughout. Instead of using all yellow lights, 2700 Kelvin, dull yellow lights, especially on an older house, you want a quick, cheap, easy way to fix a house and make it look better, change it to 4000 Kelvin. It looks a whole lot nicer. Locking cleaning closet. I like to have that so that your guests don't use up every towel and sheet set that you have in the house. Guests will use every towel in your house if you leave it available to them, and they will use the sheet sets. I've had guests change the sheets just because they wanted to make sure they were clean. So then you're looking at 6 to 7 loads of laundry instead. USB lamps, USB side tables, those are really helpful and save you that, hey, do you have a charger for my phone? No, you should have one. Last one, multiple ways of entries. I've got things to avoid. I think these are probably almost more important than the preferred tips. Like I said, don't use old items from your home. Very common, but it's not a great way to furnish a house. Second one, stay away from white sheets and white towels. This is a very common misconception that you can bleach these and make them clean and bright again. Unless you run a commercial laundry and you're using commercial products, you're not going to get them to look like a hotel does. I've tried explaining this to people that set up their own properties. 2 months later, we're replacing all their sheets and towels because of that. They stain very easily. Patterns, grays, like a teal blue, I like all those. But I use pattern sheets for the beds. I use cheap, inexpensive sheets from Costco, $19 a pair for kings, $15 for queens. Don't go with high thread count, crazy stuff. It makes no difference in what you get per nightly rate, but you will be mad when they get runned. They will get runned. Another one, don't leave expensive or fragile items in the house that are easily walked off or they're broken. This goes especially for wall art and decorations. I've had people talk to me about putting $4,000 paintings on the wall. Well, it only takes one person to take that $4,000 painting, and we can't prove that they stole it unless you've got a camera on the outside and they walk past it. So if you don't want it to walk off, don't put it in the house, because there's a likelihood that it will happen.
Speaking of cameras, real quick question, you said outside only, I mean, is it a law you can't have it inside?
Yeah, absolutely, no inside. Nothing in any guest's personal space. Now you can have one in the backyard as long as it's disclosed and it's outside and it's not a personal space. We have some on our pool properties, mainly for liability purposes, to make sure, hey, this guest fell in the pool because he was drunk, not because they slipped on something of ours. So that's one of the big things. But that one, we had an upset guest 3 weeks ago now, had a doorbell camera on there. This guy was punching, screaming, yelling at us because he couldn't find the house on Google Maps. He calls Airbnb 2 days later and tells them that we have cameras in the house, shut our listing down for 2.5 weeks. That was a listing with a pool. Luckily, we're already booked up, but if it was a house that doesn't book as easy or has a shorter lead time, I would have lost 2.5 weeks of revenue because of that. And that's how difficult Airbnb, especially Airbnb, can be to deal with their customer service. It's usually guest first, host last. So that's something you need to keep in mind when you're dealing with them. Another big one, please don't theme your house. Don't theme your house with a beach theme in Lubbock, Texas. We're not a beach town. I have a beach house. It is ugly, and nobody wants their beach towels as their actual towels they're getting out of the shower with, so don't do that. Texas Tech. People that come here, a lot of times they are tech fans. A lot of times they're not from tech and they don't like Texas Tech. So just clean, bright, and modern. Just keep it simple. Just doesn't have to have a theme unless it's something really cool. Like if you had like a really cool steampunk house, industrial house, maybe, but stay away from the common stuff. Old appliances, this one will cost you money, big time. Just buy a new washer and dryer. Don't waste your time trying to go pick these up. Go to Best Buy, get one, get a warranty, and make sure it's just a good one to make sure your stuff is clean and ready to go. And they're a lot faster too and more efficient. Same thing with refrigerators. If you have one in there already, fine, that's no big deal. But if you end up having to replace it, get yourself a decent top bottom freezer, no water line, keep it simple. Stainless steel too, looks better. Don't have any locks to use keys. Guests will lose every key you give them. They'll tell you they won't, they will lose it. Same thing with garage door openers. Garage keypads are much better. And then don't skimp on decorations. This is very common to see a house that oh, we're ready to go. I go in there to take photos. Where's your wall art? Well, we got 2 pictures in here. Yeah, that's not enough. Well, we spent a lot of money on the house already. I know, I told you it was gonna be $10,000. Well, we thought we could do it for cheaper. Well, we're like 12, 13,000 in now. I'm like, sorry, you gotta have wall decorations. You gotta have it looking like a presentable, nice house. You want people to wanna be there. So we're gonna move to listing options. Most common one, of course, is Airbnb. Then you have Verbo, VRBO, however you wanna say it. Booking.com's one, Expedia. You have Homes to Go, all these other smaller ones, and then you can do direct booking. I would say stick to 2 or 3, Airbnb, Verbo, and then if you use software like I do, direct booking's great. We get a lot of direct bookings. Now, if you want to use more than one listing platform, say Airbnb and Verbo, you need to have a software suite. They call them PMSs, property management software systems, or you need to have a channel manager. Both of those are usually what they call API connections with the vacation rental platform, so they're instantaneous. So if somebody books for your graduation booking in May, that's instantly blocked on your other platform so that nobody else can book it. Keeps you from getting double booked and upsetting people and having penalties on your account when you have to cancel people. So a few things to note. Airbnb, obviously the most common. Majority of your bookings will come through there, especially for mid-level properties. Your Verbo houses will have your higher end people that are coming through there. So if you have a nice house, you probably get more bookings on Verbo. Airbnb is more common with younger adults. Verbo is more common with older people. And then Airbnb, you need to read the terms of service all the way through. It's very boring, but it will help you understand what is covered, what's not covered. Same with their host guarantee. Understand what you're getting into with them, and that sometimes things happen. They'll do stuff that really upsets you. We were talking about this earlier. It's cost of doing business sometimes. You can argue with them, but once their decision is made, it is very, very difficult to get overturned. Another thing too is don't ever plan on suing Airbnb. They have I think it's a litigation clause. Do you know what that is? Anyway, you're not supposed to be able to sue them. It's arbitration, mediation only with them. So they're a difficult company to work with. Another one, customer service, very difficult to deal with. You're dealing with all overseas people every single time you call, even as a super host. If you're not a super host, you're gonna be waiting for upwards of 20, 25 minutes sometimes even longer than that. If you are a super host, usually less than 5. Doesn't really change the customer service you get. It's all dependent on who you get on the phone. I would say 1 out of 10 times I call, I get somebody decent. Most of the time, it's like they barely can understand English, let alone what you're trying to tell them with the property. Superhost, that is, I think it's 80 or 90% 5-star reviews, no cancellations within a year. Not instant response to message, but message response under 1 hour, no missed inquiries. I think there's 5 criteria, and then there's also Premier Host with Verbo, and so I've got both of those on my accounts. It's not too hard, really. Biggest thing with guests, communication. Just talk to them, pick up your phone, answer your texts and your messages. That's really that simple. And be empathetic. You can gripe about them as much as you want once you're done talking to them, but just be kind. They're frustrated, they're traveling, and so unless they're really just being rude, just try to eat it and deal with the situation. So another couple things with Airbnb, know your cancellation policies. I see this one a lot, both from a host and a guest side, even if you're traveling. If you're booking a strict property and you have to change your plans or cancel, you are not getting anything back if it's less than 30 days out. So just plan on that. Most hosts are not very flexible with that at all. That goes with their platform being inflexible. They don't give you a lot of options as hosts. So you have guests that you can tell are going to be a problem. Well, if you don't know how to cancel them and get rid of them, you're really stuck with them. And so you might be stuck with them until they start messing up your property. Then you have to go through the cops and call an Airbnb and dealing with all this, and then the host guarantee. It can be a real mess. So know how the platform works. Really explore it before you get into it. And then the last one that's just killer with them is they have no true deposit system. They'll ask you if you want to have a deposit, but they don't do anything. They don't take holds on your credit cards. They don't do anything. So if you get a person that messes up your house and you have $1,000 worth of damage, I don't care if you took a deposit, you still have to go through the whole customer guarantee or the host guarantee process, invoices, pictures, dealing with the guest line, all that stuff to hopefully get paid. So just keep that in mind. I don't know anything about Rhino. Is it property insurance or renter's insurance?
I don't think Rhino is for short-term rentals, unfortunately. That is for long-term.
The only true short-term rental insurance I know of is Proper Insurance. That's the name of the company. They're a little bit more expensive, but they do a really good job. My parents have an Airbnb. They got paid out when COVID hit.
What Rhino, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but what Rhino does is actually, instead of like putting a direct deposit in, it has them like pay like $25.
Yeah, it's like car insurance,
Yeah.
but it's for rental properties, like long-term rentals.
I'd highly
Don't
doubt.
have like a short-term rental, to my knowledge, like that.
Yeah, I highly doubt that would be the case.
The way it works, like if the renter messes something up, they pay like $3,000 fixed.
Yeah, but you have to understand that long-term rentals and short-term rentals are very, very different, and they're insured very differently. If you go look for a rider to be added to your policy on a short-term rental, say from State Farm, they'll do it, but it's going to cost you some big money. I doubt Rhino allows for short-term rentals, but you're welcome to look into that if you like. So you can do, now with bigger property management companies, they have the ability to do insurance, travel insurance, kind of like you would with a car rental. You can offer that, but I was looking at them to see if it might be something we wanted to offer. They have terrible, terrible reviews. So I don't want to sell something to somebody that is going to just not work, and then they're going to be really upset afterwards.
Yeah, Rhino great for long-term,
Mhm.
it just doesn't work for short-term.
Yep.
Not to my knowledge.
Yeah, just do that in your reserve the same way you do capital expenditures and your looking at the house numbers itself. I would do the same thing for Airbnb short-term rental. So on Verbo, that's your next biggest one. This is for, I say, the older crowd. My parents call it Verbo all the time, and it makes me laugh because my dad has never said Airbnb. He just says VRBO, and I laugh at him. But it's been around since the mid-90s, I think, actually. It started in Austin, from what I understand. Used to be HomeAway and Verbo consolidated. They are so much easier to deal with, especially from a management perspective. We get a hold of their credit card information, we can charge them, we can take a deposit if we need to. Most of the people that stay through there are rarely an issue. Airbnb are just the people that we have the most problems with. Verbo, not near as much. They do have higher expectations as guests, but if you have a good home, you shouldn't have too many issues. Let's see.
Hey, Gary.
Yeah.
Excuse me, so if you just went VRBO, what's the percentage of loss you?
I would say it's pretty substantial. Yeah. It depends on the house too, though. I'm gonna hate on Airbnb a lot. They're not the worst. You just have to learn how to manage to deal with them. It's just frustrating when something happens. You can go 3 or 4 months without anything, especially when you have just 1 or 2 or whatever. But when you have something happen, it can be a real issue. 3.5 years ago, when I was managing about 25, they had a big software issue. And I have all these individual accounts for my owners, and they started transferring deposits from one owner's account to another completely separate account. And it became a huge disaster, like a huge mess. And it's stuff like that that tends to happen pretty consistently with Airbnb. It's always some sort of issue. But I think you lose out a lot of rentals if you don't use them. So, but if you have a really good house, you can build a presence on Verbo. Your listing ranking will also depend on which one you book more often on. So if you book a bunch on Verbo, you're going to be pushed to the top of their ranking in their search engine, versus on Airbnb, you're going to be a lot lower, and then vice versa too. That's what I've seen is pretty common. The layout of Verbo, a little bit more difficult, but once you get it down, it's just like clicking through pages, not a big deal. More options when it comes to showcasing your listing. They have, I can't remember what it's called, but you basically get points for getting good reviews, and you can boost yourself up in their rankings by spending those points to move up in their search results. And you can also create videos that you can link to, so you can do a walk through your property. Guest messaging is definitely more difficult. It's email based and not as much app based. So you have an app, but if they don't enter email correctly, you have a really hard time getting a hold of them. But yeah, it's much easier to charge if they break something, so that's a big plus. Booking.com, I won't spend hardly any time on it. Don't waste your time unless you're a property manager doing this and you've got the direct integration with them. It's hard to set up. It's very expensive. They have super high commissions, difficult to use their messaging system. It's not user friendly. It's more for hotels. And then direct booking, if you have software or a website, this can be really beneficial, especially for long-term stays, 30 days plus. You can get people in there, save on the taxes, the commissions, the platforms charge. It'll save a ton of money, make you more money overall too, and it's just a lot easier to deal with. And you don't have to worry about reviews, because that's a big portion of it. Cleaning is going to be the most difficult area to manage for the most part. I got to check time, by the way. My wife said I have to be home at 7 o'clock on the dot. She's a photographer, and she's got to go shoot. Cleaning's a big one. Decide on how you're going to clean the property. Are you going to do it yourself, or are you going to have somebody else do it? I put this down at the bottom. I was thinking of this yesterday. Even if you plan on having a cleaner clean your house, when you get it set up and have had your first couple of guests, go through there and clean it once yourself. Get an expectation of what it takes to clean that house, how much laundry it's going to take, how much time, what guests do. That way you can not only see how the cleaners feel and understand it, but you can see how much time it should take too if you're hustling and doing it right. Because cleaning companies and cleaners on an individual basis, they may charge a flat rate, say 75 or 125 or whatever, or they may charge an hourly rate. And so if they're charging hourly, you really need to know how long they're spending in that property. Another thing is your inspections. How are you going to follow up on your cleanings and inspections? When you're just starting with it and you've got a new cleaner, make sure you're inspecting, and not only inspecting at the end, but make sure you're checking in with them when they're supposed to be there. That's the biggest problem we have with new cleaners. Come in to interview, we talk to them, have them go train, they go out on their first job, don't even show up. And then it happens all the time. Another one's plan for worst case scenarios. You'll have some great stays where you're like, man, I don't have to do hardly anything in this cleaning. Great, save that money from that cleaning and save it for the time that you have to pay extra for a deep cleaning and you're having a hard time charging the guests, because you might have a ton of great stays, but you're gonna have somebody really bad stay there and they're gonna mess it up. So, and when that happens, document. I'll go over that at the end too. Next one, use a cleaning software. This will help you schedule things. Use something that's app-based, whether it's vacation rental specific or calendar-based or whatever it is. Find a way to integrate your bookings into a software so that you don't miss them. It's really easy to get to your day-to-day and find out that, oh shoot, I have to go clean the house. It's 2 o'clock, I got 2 hours and they're checking in. That can be an issue too. So, cleaning checklists. Another thing with the software is that if you have that checklist, you can go through there and check everything each time. Even when I clean houses, I rarely clean them anymore, but graduation I had to because it was super busy. I still go through my cleaning checklist that I created 3 years ago because I always forget something. Oh, forgot to take a picture of the microwave to make sure it's clean. Sure enough, that microwave's not clean on the inside. Or your coffee filter or your coffee maker, whatever it might be. This will just help make sure that everybody's on the same page. I use picture verification checklists, and then I'll also have them clock in and out each time that they stay there. One of the last things is don't set out more than you're willing to have guests used. COVID, we were getting toilet paper stolen left and right, so it was crazy. And I couldn't buy enough toilet paper at Sam's or Costco. It was a mess. So don't set out more than 2 or 3 rolls of toilet paper. Even if they're staying for 10 days, they can go buy themselves some toilet paper. That's just how it is. K-cups, please don't use K-cups. If your house sleeps 6 and there's 6 grown adults and they drink 2 cups of coffee apiece, that's 12 K-cups in one morning. They're there for 3 days, you just went through an entire box of K-cups. Or you could go through 3 pots of coffee. And that's a lot cheaper. And they don't get stolen. And they don't get scaled up like your Keurig does, and you don't have near as many issues. So I fight with owners on this on probably a monthly basis on new owners. Want to use a Keurig? Please don't. We're going to use it. Okay, cool. 3 months later, coffee maker. And then these are the things to consider. What are you going to charge for your cleaning? If you're cleaning it yourself, do you want to try to attract more guests to have a lower cleaning fee, or do you want to have a higher cleaning fee, make some money off of it? Or do you want to pay a service company? You want to pay them exactly what they're getting paid, or do you want to have a scrape on there where you're making 10, 15, 20 bucks off of that cleaning? That's another big one. Will the price of cleaning deter potential guests? This could be a big one, especially for smaller properties, smaller families. I'm always looking for the small ones that are like 40, 50 bucks. If you can find those, that's great, but generally anywhere from about 60 to 85, 95 is pretty standard in our market for 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 4 bedrooms. How are you gonna find a cleaner? You can try on Facebook Marketplace. I'm trying all the time, almost every day, and it is very, very difficult. You know it with property management, cleaners are some of the worst people to try to hire. Some of the worst employees, worst they're horrible. Very difficult. Yep. And that goes into the next point. Your cleaner should have common sense, timeliness, and the ability to follow a concise list. You would think that'd be easy. It is not. They do not have most of those. Monitor the amount of time that they spend at the property. Use your software. Also know what's in your property. Inventory it. I had a bad cleaner. Worked for us for over a year. Got back into drugs. We started seeing all sorts of stuff going missing. Stole a pole saw. Stole all sorts of stuff. So just got to be paying attention constantly. Picture verification. That goes to your cleaning checklist. And then create a payment schedule for your cleaners. A common thing that you'll see with people off of Facebook and that are looking to start cleaning, I finished the job, I want to be paid now, send me my money now. And they will text you and hammer you until you pay them. Make that expectation up front with them that you're getting paid on Fridays for what you've cleaned from Sunday through Friday. And once they understand that, it makes it a whole lot easier for you to deal with because they will blow your phone up and they won't stop leaving you alone until you pay them. Maintenance, another big one. Along with your checklist that you're gonna have for cleaning, make sure you have what I call a property profile. This is gonna make sure you have everything in the house written down, serial numbers, HVAC filter sizes, anything and everything you can possibly have so that you can not only give this to the guest if they need it, but mostly you can give it to your maintenance staff or yourself and have it. So when you do have a warranty call or something like that, you won't have any trouble with it. Big one, if you're going to self-manage, learn to do your small maintenance on your own and avoid high service fees. HVAC filter changes take 5 minutes. You should be able to do that yourself. Home warranty, this one's kind of hit or miss. I'm not a big fan of them. I have some owners that use them, but for short-term rentals, they're garbage. Everything always happens on a weekend. They don't perform warranty service calls on a weekend. It's expensive. They're worthless in my opinion, but I put it there because some owners have them.
Well, long-term rentals, they're basically pointless too.
Yeah.
FYI.
Well, I'm glad to hear that because they're trash. If you're not handy or don't have tools, find someone who is and make sure they're your friends and they can operate in emergencies and outside operating hours because it happens at the worst time every time. It's not going to happen in the afternoon on a Wednesday when you can go take care of it. It's going to happen on a Friday night at 11 o'clock at night. So my two main ones that I want to have in my back pocket is a good plumbing company and a good electrician. Good plumbing company, and make sure you know what they charge for their sewer clogs. That's a big one. Make sure they have the right machines too. There's a lot of companies, plumbers out there that say, well, I can go clean a sewer line. Do you have a rolling sewer line machine that's got a big 1-inch cable on it to clean out tree roots and everything else? Because if they're using something that's small, it's not going to clean it out and they'll still charge you for it. If you have potential plumbing issues, go ahead and get that fixed now, especially sewer lines. Who are you use as a maintenance person? That's a big one. We have a guy, he works full-time for us. He's got 20 rental properties of his own. He looks professional. Make sure your person looks professional if you're sending them over to a short-term rental house. Guests that are out of town, don't know what's going on, are having an issue as soon as they get in or a day after they get in. They're not going to generally be too happy if a toothless guy comes over, looks like he's been on meth for 15 years and wants to fix your electric for you. So keep that in mind when you have people coming by. How often will routine maintenance take place? Put your HVAC filters on 60 or 90 days. As much money as you should be making on these or the extra cash flow, it shouldn't cost you much to put in a new HVAC filter. Same thing with going through the house, take that property profile, walk through all those items, see how they're working, check your lights, your fridge, make sure your exhaust fans are working. Super easy stuff. Spray for pests quarterly. We use Keith Wire with big K's. He's awesome. I think he charges $45 for a whole house spray quarterly. Super easy to deal with, and he will help you out in emergencies too. He's a great guy. Detailed inspection, that goes back to your checklist and to your, I guess, your quarterlies and your maintenance stuff. Just do that. This is a big one. When I talk about guests being dumb, I don't mean to be mean by saying that, but just don't expect them to understand how to do anything in a property. Some of these people that are staying with you have never lived outside of an apartment complex, especially if they're from a big city. So you got to be very mindful of what they can and cannot do. Most people don't know that we have dumpsters in the alley in Lubbock. That's a common question you'll get. Tell people where the trash can is because they have no idea that dumpsters exist. They think you're supposed to take your trash out front. That's interesting to see when you show up to a house and it has 8 bags of trash on the driveway and it hasn't been taken out and you're like, what is going on? They don't realize any better. So consider creating a property maintenance manual. That's the last one on this slide. I like to have that in case you do have a handy guest or a guest that's willing to put in a a little bit of work to see if they can get the problem fixed pretty quickly. I saw a really great one. I got married in Houston back in February, and they had the best maintenance manual. And we stayed in an Airbnb. Copied that. We're using that now, so it's been really nice. Pricing. This is a big one for you guys, especially new people that are just starting out. Know your dates. Know when graduation is. Please know when graduation is, because you will get bookings for 2023 if you set up a listing today and you have $150 a night for next year. And you're gonna be really angry because you should be getting $800 to $900 a night on 2-day minimums on those. Same thing with your football games, price out your football games. If you're doing this all on your own through Airbnb, Vrbo, all your stuff's gonna be manual. You can do what's called rule sets, where you can create minimum stays, minimum prices, things like that. I use software, it's a lot easier, but it's up to you.
Buy your software, or did you make it yourself?
No, everything is bought. You could try making it. You could become a multimillionaire if you can make these softwares on your own, because if like property management software, what do you guys pay per listing? Do you know?
Per listing?
Yeah, or per month?
Oh, shoot, with everything included, it's easily $7, $8 per listing or per unit, whether it's vacant or not.
Yeah, ours is about
So-
40.
40?
40 a listing monthly. It's super expensive. So there's a big difference between the two markets, mainly because you're trying to manage your channels. So you have to have API integrations with the channels. You have to have cleaning integration. You have to have pricing. You have to have a robust accounting system, because you got to use trust accounting the same way as you use for property management. It's a mess. So if you can, use software. There's a bunch of stuff out there. Do your research, find what works for you in this market, because what works for me may not work for somebody that has one or two. There's a lot of stuff geared towards the smaller, and there's a lot of stuff for the middle, and then stuff for the people that have 500 or more. So, but there's plenty of software out there. Different pricing of different times of year. Summer's busier. January through April is pretty slow. So try to drop your prices. Try to encourage longer term bookings during those time periods. I'd rather have occupancy than I would vacancies. I'd rather drop the price to $80 a night for a nice house than $0 a night. So, but hand in hand with that, you also worry about bad guests. So keep that in mind too. Don't overprice or underprice your listing. That's pretty common. I see a lot of people overpricing their listing, having this expectation that their house is super nice and they're wanting $300 a night. It's probably not gonna happen unless you have a pool in Lubbock. Make sure you have the right cleaning fee too. Make sure your taxes are also in there. That'll be our next slide. Taxes are a big deal. You have to charge the state hotel, local hotel, and the local venue tax. They're all collected in different ways, so make sure you understand that. And then decide how far into the future you want to book. Anywhere from 3 months rolling calendar, a 1 month rolling calendar, 12. I book on a 12, but I have all these pricing levels so that I can make sure people aren't booking 6 months out without having to book 10 days or more, stuff like that. You can open them up manually, or you can have it on a rolling basis. Another things to consider: do you have the time for it? It's kind of time consuming. Do you know the market rate? Don't use AirDNA. Everybody I talk to tells me AirDNA told me my listing's worth $250 a night. I don't know where they're getting their data, but it is wrong. It is very wrong. I see that so often, so please try not to use that one. Look at your occupancy and have a really good way of keeping your reporting. Make sure you're doing your reporting on a monthly basis. So that way you know your net cash flow, your revenue figures, your expenses. You can see what you're making, and it's a lot easier to take care of at the end of the year. I'm going to blast through these last two slides because I can leave in like 5 minutes. Monthly reporting, take care of that each month. Registration, city charges $100 a month, or not a month, sorry, $100 a year. It's just a one-time fee each year. It's really simple, nothing special, but make sure you do it, because code enforcement will come ticket you, and you can get in big trouble. I've heard of people getting summonsed, court dates, all sorts of stuff, because they won't register their house for $100. That way, with the registration, they know that you're a short-term rental. You can pay your tax to the city, charges to the guests, make it a pass-through so that you're not taking it out of your own pocket. The state hotel is 6%, local hotel is 7%, local venue is 2%. City allows you to keep 1% of that for tax collection reimbursement, so it's basically 1%. State hotel tax paid through the comptroller, local hotel tax is paid through Lubbock's MuniRev's website, and the venue tax, you fill out a PDF, send it into the city, and pay by credit card. So I put a little more stuff in there, and I'll send this out to you guys. Messaging and reviews. communicate effectively, answer your phone, talk to people, be kind, save your griping for your friends and family. That's what I do all the time. But Shauna, my employee that works with me, we call each other all the time. It's personal, professional, because it's a direct reflection of you, your property, and for me, it's my business. So your reviews, make sure you're reviewing every guest. They're going to usually review you, especially if you ask for a review. But make sure you're going in there and have a system for reviewing people. One of the things you can do with reviews too is not only help boost your rankings, but say you have a bad guest that they were bad in your property, they tore it up, partied, whatever, they're probably not going to leave you a review. But if you go in there and review them, they're going to get a notification that they just got reviewed, and I promise you they're going to go in there and tell you this whole story about how terrible you were, blah, blah, blah. But if you know when the review period ends, Airbnb, it's 15 days, and you know what time it is, you can go in there and time your review 15, 20 minutes at midnight, leave them a terrible review and they won't have time. My software does this automatically for me, and it's amazing because you get to put your review in, it comes up on their profile, and they aren't going to review you back. So, but yeah, respond to them as well. That's a big one. If you have a bad review, you're going to have one, even if you've got the best property.